ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Collider episode 55. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
And I'm Andy Lewis.
Welcome back, boys.
Hello.
It's good to be back.
We may actually have a normal podcast for once.
There is no such thing as a normal podcast where we're concerned.
Yeah, you say normal. I mean, normal's pretty boring, right? So we'll be as normal as we get.
Yeah, which is not very normal at all.
No. Much more interesting that way.
Welcome back, Mr. Cage.
Thank you.
We missed you.
Yeah, it was some tough times, but we're back for some board gaming now, and it's good for the distraction. So yes.
You did miss Mr. Lewis's Insert of Choice Award 2018.
You did. Very important. I'm disgusted you missed it.
You say that. I did listen to the podcast, so I was there in retrospective spirit.
That's close
well,
enough.
Did you see what turned up on Twitter this last week?
I was quite impressed with what turned up on Twitter. Game trays have outdone themselves.
Indeed. I was quite touched by that.
So for those that didn't see it, we announced, of course, in the last episode, which inserts Andy had picked as his insert choice, and of course we mentioned it on Twitter. Next thing we know, Game Trays have posted a picture up where they've made themselves their own Polyhedron Collider Inserted Choice Award trophies and placed them in front of the games which they made the inserts for that we gave them the awards.
I thought it was amazing. That was so cool.
10 out of 10 for ingenuity.
Absolutely. Not only do they make belting inserts, but they make belting awards as well. And have a sense of humour. And more importantly, listened to the podcast.
Yeah. It's always reassuring to know that someone important listens to this.
Or indeed, someone listens to this.
That's it.
So yeah, that was really cool. I was well impressed.
They're quite impressive little trophies, actually.
They were.
Not quite sure what they'd... It wasn't just like they'd, written a couple of words on a canteen polystyrene cup or anything. Like these were, they looked like little clear, see-through, name-tagged, printed out Polyhedron Collider logo. Maybe we could get the template off them.
For next year. Totally.
Yeah.
There must have been about 10 minutes of effort that went into making them.
Or maybe it's one of those trophies that gets handed round.
Is that like the bottle of wine that gets handed around? When you go to someone's house, you give them a bottle of wine, but no one ever opens that wine, and it just does the rounds for the next 10 years.
I would like to think that this award is somewhat more prestigious than the metaphorical bottle of Lambrusco.
See, the problem is I always just get too thirsty. We come to a night where there's like no booze in the house, and it's just like, oh, stripping this bottle of wine? Yeah, what the hell?
That's not wine, that's toilet cleaner.
It's too sweet to be toilet cleaner, I reckon.
You do get, sometimes you just look at it and go, I really need a beer. What have I got in the house? Lambrini? Or Domestos? We'll go for the Domestos then.
So as well as the insert of the year award, the other thing that I took from last week's podcast is I can't trust you guys to just stay even remotely on target without me with the anti-waffle stick.
Hey, that was fun. People learned. We learned. We grew as people, and we also learned that Dunelm is clearly the store of choice for soft furnishings.
It's dangerous, that place.
It is, yes. I need to go back, actually. We need some more mats, and possibly some bedside tables.
Stay on target, Gold Leader.
No. Laura and I have got an eye on a couple there, and given that we barely agree on furnishings, this is like opportunity not to be missed.
It puts you at ease at all. I went to Andy's house on Sunday, so me and Amanda went, and one of the first things Amanda said was, we need to get light fittings like that.
Oh, she likes the light fittings, does she?
It was the lampshade in your lounge.
Yes, the glass ones, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been arguing for ages about which light fittings to get. And we just couldn't find one that we both liked.
She went for the transparent one.
Yes. Well, the thing is, Laura pointed out some ones that had been similar, but for some reason I just didn't quite go for them. But then we were just mooching around B&Q one day, looking for something else completely. We just kind of wandered through, just go, let's have a look down here just to see what happens. And we're like, that's quite nice. What do you think of that? Yeah, that's all right, that. Should we get them? Yeah, all right. So we ended up walking out with 3 more. So yeah, we've got the one in the lounge, one in the dining room, and one in the just off the lounge for the stairs down, a little sort of smaller version of it. So yeah, job done.
Very good.
And yeah, really, really nice. Very happy. So I spent the afternoon fitting those bastards and rewiring, as I mentioned last time. That's when I discovered whoever wired our house 10 years ago was a cretin.
Well, let's hope that this one that rewired it did a better job.
It works, so it must do, because last time when I took the old fitting, it would never turn off.
Yeah, that doesn't sound quite right.
No, exactly.
Sounds like the same guy who rewired my car.
Hey.
I had an old
We're
X
so
right
close
off.
to getting back to talking about board games.
I had an old Corsa, and one of the days, the headlight bulbs went, and I replaced the bulb, and it still wasn't working. And so I was trying to work out whether it was the fuses. I was swapping the fuses. There's supposed to be two fuses for your headlamp bulbs, and it didn't matter which fuse I unplugged. It turned the other headlight off.
Hey?
Yeah, exactly. Basically meant that for some reason the left-hand headlight was wired to both headlight fuses.
Right.
But it was wired in such a way that if you took one of them out, it worked, but you kept the other. I don't know. It didn't make any sense. I remember taking it to a garage. The guy looked at it and then phoned me back half an hour later and said, basically, take this car out of my garage. I never want to see it again.
Nice.
You could almost
Wow.
make a board game out of that.
It's not going to work, Cage.
No, it's not. You quiet.
Damn it. Have you guys blunted this stick?
Cut it in half. It doesn't reach anymore.
Okay then, Mr. Cage. If you want to talk about some board games, pick a board game you played. Since it's been like 6 weeks since we last actually talked about what we played. So
I thought you were going to say
surely
it's
you
been
must have
6
played-
weeks since we played one.
Not quite. So surely you must have played something interesting, exciting, and fascinating in that time.
I've played a few games actually for once. Where shall I start? Do you know what? We played something that was rather good fun over New Year, which was Detective.
Yes.
Is that the one that Rory recommended?
Yes, it is.
Ah, okay.
And I think most of us would agree that it was a fun game to play. Not without a few small criticisms,
Ooh!
but generally speaking, it was pretty cool.
Come on, stick the boot in. Do it.
Well, I'm not very good at sticking the boot in, but I will tell you what I thought of it. So the premise is that you are detectives and you're given a little bit of backstory to describe the fact that you're investigating a set of circumstances that have gone on. I don't want to give too much away because knowing anything about it, I'll probably give the core plot away knowing me.
Was it the butler?
Shit, you played it as well?
Actually, I was watching QI. Oh, was it last week? And apparently, in was it the Agatha Christie ones where the butler was supposed to always have done it? Apparently, the butler never did it. He got a bad rap. Just saying.
There you go. Well, this
Spoiler alert, it's the mousetrap.
That was a good game.
You guys are hard work. Like harder work than normal.
It's like we're trying today.
So, Detective. Yes, is a game in which you play a bunch of detectives. You start off at the precinct. You've got to go around and solve or investigate some goings on. Each thing that you're given kind of clues that could lead you in some various directions. But each of them will take a certain amount of time, and you don't know ahead of time how much it's going to take. Just like real life, really. So if you had something where you could go and investigate some files over here, or you could go and interview a person over there, but you have to go to a different precinct to do it, it's all unknown initially. The only thing you do know is that you've got 4 days in which to solve this thing.
Oh.
So you've kind of got to time manage what goes on in the game versus what you think is the most likely lead, what you're going to glean the most information out, because it's almost certain that you don't have time to do everything. The other really cool thing I liked about this is that when you are looking up some of these answers, they'll point you to just bits on like Wikipedia. So it's like real world events have kind of been woven into the story, into the intrigue. And I think this is one of our downfalls, you do actually need to pay a reasonable amount of attention to most of the detail in all of these.
That is not a downfall, John. That's just highlighting potentially a flaw in your personality.
Yeah, exactly. A downfall of the way that we played the game is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. That sounds good.
The other thing, they recommend that you should play it with like a great big whiteboard and like bits of string, contacting all the different bits that you think might be links and all the rest of it. And we thought, yeah, that's quite cool that they suggest that in the rule. I actually genuinely think it's essential.
Yes.
Really?
About halfway through the
Yeah.
game, I was looking at like all of my 3 or 4 pages of notes, like, wasn't there something about that person that we lived before? Like just rifling backwards and forwards. You need something like that. I almost think that there ought to be like an app that comes with it that allows you to compare, that just links the stuff so that you can draw virtual bits of string.
I think it is a game that needs to be played in a meeting room so you can get a flip chart and a whiteboard. I think it actually does need that, yeah.
Sounds good.
Now, I had another problem with the game, which was the wording, and I think that's part of my day job affected me on that one.
Not just you.
Because one of the things it said at the end was you have to be able to say things were true and you had evidence for it.
Yeah, you had to be certain.
You had to be certain, and there was a bit at the end which we think, because we kind of backtracked once we found the solution and got our score and looked to see if there was something we were missing. And in my opinion, it was a massive leap of faith towards the end of the investigation.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which, if you'd have gone into a real court with, the judge would have thrown out.
And being pernickety, rulesy people, we as Steve and I were like, well, it doesn't, we can't categorically say that that's the truth. Therefore, we can't say that we know the answer to this thing. Meanwhile, Steve's wife, Amanda, is losing her shit because it's obviously that thing. What the fuck's wrong with you people? So that was a little bit frustrating that it came to that. And a little bit towards the end, I mean, we played it for what, 4 hours, 5 hours?
We played what should have taken about an hour and a half in like 4 hours, yes.
Bloody hell.
It was New Year's Eve, so we were all being a bit chatty and dancing around it in places.
Yeah.
And we stopped to have food at one point, and then we stopped to have pudding at one point. So it kind of, we weren't concentrating full on. And we also had a Ben in our team.
Yeah, that's true.
So you've seen Ben in our D&D groups, and Ben is like asking questions every 5 seconds. And whereas like I wrote 2 pages of notes, John wrote 4 pages of notes, Ben had written like a dissertation worth.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's just like everyone else, still missed one of the clues, which was like blatant, and we all made the same mistake.
Yeah.
Excellent. That sounds interesting.
There were loads of times where, towards the end, it asks you a series of questions and says, can you answer this? Here are some options. And I'm sat there like, I know, I'm pretty sure it's that thing there. But I can't find in my 4 or 5 pages of notes now which bloody thing actually confirms it. And like, I know it's in there somewhere.
Just
so
flag
frustrating.
it, you're right.
But that's just it. We didn't think that you could.
See, it sounds like a slightly heavier weight version of Consulting Detective, Sherlock Holmes. Because it sounds similar to that, where Sherlock basically gives you a scenario, and there's a bunch of options around London where you could go, and kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure, you just basically wander over to one of these locations and decide what you want to read about and talk to and see how well you do. But you only get a certain number of goes, basically, and at the end of it, you get to score it. And the more goes you have, the worse you do. And it tells you how well Holmes did. And I think we played it, the first mission, because there's 10 of them. And you get, like, news clippings and all this sort of shit. And you score it on the number of, basically, pieces of evidence or visits that you needed to get to the conclusion.
And Holmes does it in 6.
Yeah, we did it in 16, and he did it in 4. Pop Holmes, that's not possible. It's basically, from this cigarette, I can deduce he drove a Bentley, lived in Manchester, and had a mistress who lived in York. What? No.
He's good.
He is good, yes, but no, it was It was a little disheartening, actually, to get to that point. I mean, to be fair, we were a bit shit, and every single one of us completely forgot to actually investigate the scene of the crime. Which admittedly didn't help. But yeah, it's your detective sounds like a heavier version of that, with a bit more detail and a bit more investigation.
I think it's like the next evolution in that kind of concept, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's I said it's got the you've got to use the website to use it as well, because a lot of the information is kept. It's not an app; it's just a web-driven thing. So you go to a particular website and you log in, and it keeps your progress. So that monitors things like fingerprints.
Yeah.
So when you get a fingerprint, you'll type in like a code, this little hexadecimal code for the fingerprints, and then what it does is when you find something later on that's a part of a fingerprint, it will go, oh, this is a 50% match with this fingerprint you've already got.
Ooh.
So it gives you some level of certainty, but not. It doesn't ever say like it's a perfect match. You know, he did it.
Yeah.
It's like that one's got a 50% chance, this one's got a 20% chance, and that one's got a 6% chance. You're like, so you're saying it's not a no? Off down the rabbit hole we go. So that was quite cool. Yeah, having the database to track it and link the information did help a little bit with the lack of red string, but I do still think you need something like that to help you out.
Oh, yeah, I think you do. Whiteboard, definitely.
The other cool thing I liked about it is all the players, a little bit like in Pandemic, everyone's got a player character, and they've all got slightly different abilities.
Right.
That allow you to like delve deeper into the evidence, or allow you to have another chance to try things, that kind of stuff. So it adds a little bit of, you know, everyone's got a slightly asymmetric thing they can do on top of the base game.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, I just thought that was a neat little touch.
Excellent. So you're saying he's not guilty, Your Honour, but you must admit, he does look dodgy.
But Mr. Lewis has always looked dodgy.
Damn right. Keeps people on their toes. It's the same way I play Battlestar Galactica. I always act like a dick, then people aren't entirely sure. You're clearly a Cylon, Andy, but you helped us out. What are you doing? Well... Are you a Cylon? Probably.
You're trying to make out like it's some kind of act.
Yeah, I was about to say
like
that.
Just don't play a dick in every game.
Maybe. But you know, if you maintain the facade, no one's entirely sure when you turn out to be the hero.
Yeah, we still don't believe you were.
You're probably right. I'm the hero you deserve, not the one you want.
That's probably true as well. Oh dear. So yeah, so overall I felt Detective was a really interesting concept. It felt, maybe just the way that we played it and the people we played it with, it felt a bit elongated, a bit longer than it should have been. And towards the end, I was getting to the point where I was like, I'm not so fussed about who even did it. I'd just like to know the answer at this point.
Yes, and I don't know how much of that was just us as a group.
Yeah, it could well have
time
been.
over it, but there was a lot of information. And what we were doing as well is when we were coming across information, we were all basically reading it out to everyone. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think the game is intended that like one person will look at something and tell people the relevant details, rather than just regurgitate every single piece of information. Because some of those like case files which were on the computers and like data files about a particular person, there was a lot of information in some of them.
But it's difficult to know, like having never played the game before, what's likely to be pertinent information and what's just fluff. And especially when it's like a 2,000 words Wikipedia piece, you're like, well, some of it sounds like stuff that we've heard about before, but it could just be that we need to know, like, remember this so that we can then link it to stuff later. And there was a couple of articles that, like, 2/3 of the way down the actual Wikipedia piece, there was like this one snippet, and that was the bit that you need to remember later on. So yeah, it's not an easy game.
No, we played the first of 5 cases, which is in the main box. Now, one thing this is actually to this game's detriment, in my opinion. It's also a kind of resettable legacy game or a campaign game, because information we find out in the first case gets inputted into later cases.
Okay, yeah. Consulting Detective does that as well, kind of.
And I'm kind of like, I like the idea that it's linked, but I'm really struggling to find time to play games with the same people over and over again.
Yeah. But also, like the one thing that we did do that I think one of the options that we could have done, we didn't do this one. We got one that entered it into the following case, like added a card to a following case. But there was another option in there that would have added it to like case 4. Like we can't even remember the details from case 1 in case 1. How the hell are you going to remember case 1 stuff in case 4?
Oh, good lord. And you know what? I'm stunned the Met haven't called you two. You sound absolutely ideal for forensic scientists. Detectives. Good grief.
Without the help of a proper software-driven database, you're absolutely right. But give me like a couple of weeks, I'll have this sorted.
You've got 4 days, Detective Page.
I'll spend 3 days of that writing the tests and then discover I haven't got time to actually write the software. Crap! We're out of time.
My ass is on the line. Those pencil pushes at City Hall want an answer. You got 4 days. So it's good then. It sounds good.
Yes. It is good, and there's it's written as an expansion, but the way the game is made, it could quite literally be a standalone expansion, no bother. But there's an 80s LA version coming out later this year.
Oh yes, that is in fact on our article. Isn't it hitting Kickstarter, or is that the...
No, Portal don't go via Kickstarter.
So it was your article, what I was reading.
So that was Detective. Give it its full name, because there's a couple of games called Detective. It is called Detective, a modern crime board game.
Does it have a board?
No, not really.
It's a lie! You can't believe anything it tells you.
Well, we've got Rory's swanky pre-order copy, which came from a neoprene mat. So I don't think a modern neoprene mat game sounds just as catchy.
That's what marketing does for you, see.
Yes.
So, Mr. Lewis, what have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing quite a bit, but what I'm going to talk about is Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig from my friend J-Dog over in the good old US of A.
J-Dog. Jamie Stegmaier, for those of you that haven't followed the podcast before.
Yes. The man does know what he's doing. Although, to be fair, it is not a Jamie Stegmaier designed game. But this is a mashup of Between Two Cities and the Castles of Mad King Ludwig. So for anyone who hasn't played either of those, Between Two Cities is a larger large group, so up to 7 players, where you work with the people either side of you to construct a city, not unlike SimCity, with just but you put tiles down. So they're both tile placement games. And in Between Two Cities, the idea is that you basically draft tiles and you put them down in such a manner that you score the maximum points for different types of buildings. So you'll score certain numbers of points for having industrial buildings in certain configurations, or parks, or commercial buildings. So if they're next to specific types of buildings, they might score points. Or if you have more than 5 types of a building, then you'll get different types of points. But of course, it depends on the draft. And the idea is that the lowest scoring city wins the game. So of the 2 cities that you are in control of, the lowest scoring one that you make is put forward as your score. And then obviously the highest of all of those wins the game.
I liked that game.
Yeah, Between Two Cities is very good. The idea is, of course, that it forces you to not focus on only one city. You have to balance the 2. And Castles of Mad King Ludwig is similar in idea that you're basically building a castle for a Mad King, funnily enough. So it's another tile placement game, and it depends on the configuration of the castle and how you score your points. So the idea is that if you put certain buildings next to each other, you might lose points, because if you put like a noisy room next to a bedroom, for example, the king gets annoyed and you lose points. Or if you stick a dining room next to a kitchen, then you'll gain points. Or if you put it next to a garden, it's all nice because it's all quiet and tranquil, etc., etc. And there's certain types of building you can't put next to each other, and blah blah blah. So you score different points in doing that way. So what Between Two Castles does is mash those together. So it has the game mechanics of the drafting element essentially of Between Two Cities. So you have a stack of tiles that you have, and then you'll pick 2, and you'll pass the ones that remain basically to the person on your left. And of those 2 tiles, one will go to the city, the castle on your left. The other one will go to the castle on your right. And you just keep going until you've used that that stack, and then you go basically the same thing, but you go the other way. So you go clockwise and anti-clockwise, or whichever way around it is. and then you use essentially the scoring element and the tile placement of Mad King Ludwig. So you're putting different rooms in the castle next to different other rooms. So you'll put, like, say, a corridor next to an atrium, and then you can put, say, and each tile has essentially a scoring ruling on it. So basically it scores points if it's next to, say, a different type of room or under a bedroom, or if you've got all the different types of bedroom tile in your castle, you'll score a big bonus, all that sorts of things. But on top of that, if you put a certain number of a specific tile down, you'll get a bonus. You might get a card that gives you points at the end. That sort of idea. So teaching the game is a nightmare. Not because the game itself is particularly complicated, but trying to remember all of the placement rules and trying to get people to remember them and explain them all in one go is an absolute bastard.
So are you each making your own castle, or
You're making two.
You're each making two?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, in the same way of between two cities, you're making two castles, one with the person on your left and one with the person on your right.
So yeah,
Gotcha.
Steve described this quite succinctly. It's got the mechanics of Between Two Cities and the scoring of Castles of Ludwig, basically. It's slightly different, but if you think about it that way, then you're not far wrong. And it is quite mind-bending to start. I mean, it's quite a light game, and you can play through an entire game in about 20 minutes once you've got the hang of it. It doesn't take long at all. But getting your head around it takes a little bit of time, because you've got to get used to all the different ways that the tiles score, and that's the hard bit. But once you've got it and it clicks, and it kind of clicked at the same time for me and Steve when we were playing it, basically as we were sort of next to each other working on a castle, we got about 3/4 of the way through the game going, right, got it now! And then we looked at our castle and went, yep, that's not going to win. And it didn't.
It certainly did not.
But it's really well presented. I was a little sceptical of it, I have to admit, when I first saw it announced last year. And I thought, well, they've just basically reskinned Between Two Cities. And to a certain extent, that's kind of true. But the addition of all of the Mad King Ludwig idea and the complexity, the different ways in which you can score, and the variety in which you can do it and take advantage of the drafting mechanic is actually quite clever. And it gives you a lot of opportunity and a lot of benefit. And of course, if you add the different types of combinations of tiles together to get the bonuses that you can get, like you can have attendants and they work with certain types of rooms and all that sort of jazz, then you can really, it does take quite a lot of thought.
So is there an element of engine building in that respect as well then? If you're
Not really, no. Well, I suppose maybe. If you kind of think, right, I need to, so it's not as if like
It's
you'll do
more
one
set
thing to get another
collection.
thing. Yeah, it is.
It's more
yeah,
set
like
collection,
that.
isn't it? If you complete certain things, then you can pick up bonus tiles, which will get you even more points.
Yeah, it's like you've kind of got, right, I'm going to go for, say, collecting all 6 types of tile. You've really got to focus on that and basically just try and draft all of those. Of course, if the draft screws you, then you can't get it, so your tactics are screwed. But yeah, it's not in the sense that I'm going to get that, which gives me that, which gives me that, which gives me that. It doesn't work like that, no.
Okay. No, I get it. Sounds all right.
Yeah, it was good fun.
It's good.
Yes, I really enjoyed it, actually. I think it takes the better elements of both two. Not that, I mean, I've got both castles and cities as the base games, and it takes the best elements of both, I think, and combines the two, which is great. The one thing that castles and cities, I think this is just basically a detriment of or a consequence of the mechanics. So essentially, an outcome of cities, which is present in castles, is that it doesn't really work with 3 players. You need at least 4, because you've got to talk to the people either side of you.
Yeah, okay.
In a 3-player game, if you're talking to one person, there's always one person who really literally can't do anything. Because
Or
they can't
all 3
talk
of
to
you
anyone.
talking and listening to the
Yeah, exactly.
and-
It just doesn't work. Whereas if there's 4 or more people, there's always really somebody to talk to, and it's a bit more involved.
It also means you've got that whole thing of there's one castle you can't touch. I don't know if you guys have played Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders, I think, works better with at least 4 people, because at least there's one person you have no direct influence over. So
Yes. That's true, actually, yeah. So there's always a bit more competition. Well, actually, no, that'll be true in 3 as well, because you've got 2 and there's always one more.
Yeah, but what I mean is you were still interacting with both other players, whereas in a 4-player game, there's going to be one person you have absolutely no control over whatsoever.
That's true. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's
So
fair.
I said castle earlier. I should have said person.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, you could, if you were really, really good and thought about it, which obviously I don't because I'm not. Is that you could try to start passing tiles that you don't want to try and get them around the table to influence other people's decisions. But Jesus, that would take a lot of planning and a lot of thought and a lot of paying attention to what everyone else has got on the table, which if there's 7 of you would be horrendous.
So if you had to choose between two cities or Castles of Madkin Ludwig,
yes,
which one would it be?
Ludwig.
And why is that? It's
a bit heavier, and as we all know, that I like a bit more thinky. I think there's just a bit more variety to it than Cities. I think Cities is a bit light for me. It's like I've seen it all already. It's good, don't get me wrong, I like it, it's a good game, but I think there's just not quite enough to it to keep me engaged again and again and again and again. Although I do have its expansion, obviously, which I haven't tried, so that should add a bit more depth to it.
Such a junkie.
Totally, yeah. The thing is, with Ludwig, there's also, I don't know if you've played any Bezier games like Suburbia and New York Slice and stuff like that. They all have a similar mechanic where basically there's one person every round who essentially rigs the market. Because in Ludwig and Suburbia, certainly, there's like a market of tiles you can buy, and there's one person every time who basically rearranges the market according to price, however they want. So the idea is that you're kind of discouraging people to buy the tiles that you end up wanting. And whenever they buy something, they give you the money. So every time somebody earns money. So there's kind of a slightly screw over your opponent's element to it, which obviously I quite enjoy. But there's a bit more tactics to Ludwig, which is why I prefer it, I think. But it's good. So Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig is very, very good. So I have been pleasantly surprised. And it was a runner-up in the Insert of Choice Awards.
So I've played a few games as well.
Have you now? What have you been playing?
I have. Let's talk about. Let's get this game over and done with.
Oh, I know what's coming here.
So on Saturday, me and Andy played a game, and I played this game with Adam last week as well. And I believe this game is coming to Kickstarter, which would be very appropriate because this is a game about kickstarting,
crowdfunding.
Other
crowdfunding platforms are available,
but no one uses them.
No, that's true. But they are available. We can't be seen to be favouritists.
I think we could.
We could. To be fair, everyone else is. So
So this is Crowdfunder, the card game from Riverhorse Games.
Did you know that is the literal translation of the ancient Greek word for hippopotamus?
Crowdfunder?
No, Riverhorse. No, Riverhorse. That's a hippopotamus. Hippos is a horse, and potamon is a river. Hippopotamus.
There we go.
There you go. You've learned something.
Maybe that's where they got the name from. So this is a game in which you are trying to fund a crowdfunding project. So you get given your project randomly, and it'll be something silly like a zombie cider or a fan film or something like that. And what you have to do is you start the game with a hand of 6 cards, and there are 5 cards you want, which I can't remember what they are, but they're basically like a video, an add-on, a pledge level, stretch goals, an update.
An update, yeah.
I think. And the audience is like a cards played face down. Basically, you get some cards shown to you and you put face down. And what you're basically doing is you're trying to get all 5 of these cards before you can launch the project. And then what happens is, as soon as somebody shouts launch, everyone has to launch. And it's whoever basically has the best hand of cards at that time.
Okay.
It's basically gin rummy.
Yeah. Adam described it quite well. Adam described it as it is exploding kittens, but if you remove all the exploding kitten cards from the deck.
Okay. So you're just sort of playing like 1-up type cards.
Well, it's not even that. You're just burning through the deck until you have what you want, and at some point you can go, stop.
Right.
There is zero interaction in this game. There's even these like one-up cards, like instant effects cards. And I thought, oh, these will be ways in which you can screw your opponent. No, what they allow you to do is do things like change a card or go for the discard pile. You have absolutely zero influence over what your other players are doing. The only thing you can do is if you think, for instance, the other players are after, say, an add-on card, is not discard an add-on card. Because when you draw, you can either draw from the top of the deck or draw from the top of the discard pile.
Which none of us did, I must point out.
No. And that's it. And basically what you do at the end is you times the number of smiley faces you've got by the number of coins you've got, and that's what you scored. And if you didn't beat your funding goal, then you don't get any points at all.
I can't see me enjoying this game.
It's funny you should say that, Mr. Cage, because we didn't either. It's kind of a Polyhedron Collider non for 3.
Yeah, I haven't actually played it, so you can't really list that one until all 3 of us have played it.
Yes, I can. I'm going to speak for you and save you the pain.
Yeah, we're going to vote on your behalf, Mr. Cage, because you won't enjoy this. It's weird. I can't even get angry about this game because it just evokes no response from me. It's just kind of like, ugh.
Okay.
It's shit, mate. It is. There's just nothing to it. It's here is a hand of cards. Try your best to improve it and hope that you get there before your enemies do. There's nothing you can do to control it. It lacks the all-important, meaningful decision that we know and love.
No, I can see from what you described that you're right. I probably wouldn't like that game.
No.
Man, you like some terrible games.
Now, hang on.
You're not wrong, mate. You're not inaccurate, mate.
We all have some pet projects that we like more than one another. That's true of all of us. So what else have you been playing, Steve? We get too dragged down in that.
So another one I wanted to mention quite quickly as well is another one me and you played on New Year's Eve again, Mr. Cage.
I really liked this.
Which was Doodle Rush.
Yeah.
So this is a kind of variation on the whole Pictionary kind of thing. It's by Brain Games, the people who brought us Ice Cool and Game of Trains.
Both of which we love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what you've got is a stack of these little cards, which are like dry erase kind of cards, dry erase pens, and you get 2 cards with things you need to draw on them, and you have to draw each item on each card. And it's called Doodle Rush because you've got, I think it's silly like either a minute or 30 seconds to draw as many of these as you can.
Yeah.
Then you've got a minute for you to guess what everyone else has drawn and for everyone else to guess what you've drawn.
Yep.
Get any clues?
No, you just see what's there.
Oh, is it like a selection of
the
things that you could draw? Like a pool of things? Oh.
You get given a clue that says you will draw these things.
Right.
And then you have to draw those things, and other people have to guess it. And if they say, it's a cat, and you go, yeah, it's a cat, they get that card.
Do they see what you've drawn?
Yeah.
Right,
Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So,
okay,
yeah, so afterwards...
Keep it secret. Guess what I've drawn?
It's not an ESP type game.
That's why I was asking. It's like, hang on a minute. How does that work?
So all the tokens go down in front of you, once you're done. So everyone can see everyone else's cards. This is the one thing that irked me a little bit about this game. Like, I love the zaniness about trying to draw all this stuff in like 60 seconds. Like, it's very difficult to draw all the things well enough that other people are going to guess. But I did quite enjoy the challenge of that. The thing that irked me slightly is that after that, you're then all at the same time both trying to guess other people's and let them know which thing, like whether their guesses on your cards were right. And you just find yourself stood there just going, is it a cat? Is it a cat? Is it a cat? Answer my damn question. No, it's not a cat, John. God damn it.
While at the same time, somebody's going next to you and going,
is it a dog?
Car,
is
John,
it a
dog? To call it chaotic would be an understatement.
Yes, absolutely. I quite enjoyed like some people's drawing skills versus other people's guesses, though. It was hilarious. Like, is it a gladiator trying to tackle a fish? There's just some odd looks coming across the table. You're like, well, what else could it be? What do you mean
How
it's a
much
cat
did you
flap?
have to drink at that point?
Not very much. I was being good.
Oh, wow.
This was about 11 o'clock, so I was on my way, should we say.
Do you know what it reminds me of, actually, from the description you give me? It sounds like a more mental version of that game we played at AirCon last year with Paul Grogan, where we all had to draw things at the same time. that I really hated, but was curiously good at the really obscure stuff.
It's very similar, actually.
Yeah.
But it's different in the way it scores.
Right.
And this, as I said, when you actually do the scoring point, it's much, much more chaotic when you're trying to work out what everyone's drawn. And I'm not quite sure whether the game should be altered slightly so that you reveal one player's drawings at a time or something like that, so you can all guess on one person's drawings. I think that would probably make it much better.
That would be a big improvement, I'd say, actually.
Yeah.
It was a cat flap, John, not a garage door.
Obviously, a garage door. Everyone knows cat flaps open from the top. Garage doors swing halfway up. Idiots. Yeah.
Oh,
For the
that was
record,
funny.
most people guessed mine. Because after people have guessed yours, like if you don't get it, if not everyone gets it after the time's up, you go for another round. So you can go back and you can rub out some of your drawings, make some adjustments, see if you can get people to guess them. I just put them down as the same one each time, just sat there, just like, I'll wait for the time then, have a look at what everyone else is drawing, get ready to guess theirs as soon as the time. Is it a cat? No, it's still not a cat, John.
It wasn't a cat the first time. Why would it be a cat the next 25 times?
I thought you might have got it wrong.
Interesting.
It was a fun game, but there are some flaws in it.
Yes.
Some
It's a good
flaws.
little party game, I think.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. I think next time I will alter the rules slightly on that round.
Ooh, speaking of small games, I played one recently. Well, I say recently. I've still not written the article for it, which I really need to do. Is a game called Doomsday Bots,
Ooh.
which you two haven't played.
No.
No.
Don't.
All right, moving swiftly on. Why not?
It's I don't think it works. The idea is that you are a robot, or you're basically controlling a robot, and you are trying to break into the tower containing a mad inventor who lives at the top of this tower. There are 5 stories on this tower, and and there were 2 rooms on each story, and the idea is that you basically go through each room, try and get to the top, trying to survive the challenge in each room, and if you survive it, you get an upgrade or a bonus or something like that, and whenever you get to the top of the room, you take on the big bad, you try to beat the crap out of him, and if you beat the crap out of him, you get one of his treasures, and the first person to get out of the tower with one of his gizmos is the winner. And on your turn, you either sort of move or attack, or both. And in order to take on the challenge of each room, you roll a d20, and you add the bonuses that you can add from your upgrades onto this roll. And if you meet the certain score, you pass the challenge. If you don't, you lose one of your upgrades, and you drop it in the room. And that's it.
Sounds quite
Full
good.
play game.
Sounds like Talisman.
Exactly. Which is why it was not the most enjoyable thing I have ever played. To me, it was just pot luck. That's the problem. There was not a huge amount of control over it. It was just you can interact with other players. You can attack them if you wanted to, but as far as I can tell, bundling it for the top, praying to Christ you don't get the shit kicked out of you, and then running away as quickly as you could seems to be the most optimal solution, because attacking someone will slow you down. It'll give one of your opponents a chance to get ahead of you. And it also becomes quite expensive, and of course, you run the risk of losing some stuff. So it just didn't seem to be quite a good idea to me. And so, as far as I can tell, played it a couple of times, running for the top, rolling the dice, getting lucky, and then leaving seems to be the way forward. But to me, that's again, it's the same problem that we have with Krowdfunder. There aren't many meaningful decisions, and you're far too dependent on fate.
Yeah, it doesn't sound amazing.
No. And also, the rules are really, really, really unclear, because if there are certain rooms that if you fail the challenge, something else turns up, like it makes it harder, basically. But it isn't clear as to whether what turns up is in addition to the base room or instead of. So, like, it basically changes the challenge. But it doesn't say whether it basically becomes 2 challenges or 1, and it's really, it doesn't say that at all. So it's very unclear as to, I assumed it basically replaces it, but it's in sense of thematic nature, it didn't always make sense to replace it. It's like, say, if you run into like the guard station and fail it, then a guard dog will turn up or something, as in that sort of sense. You're thinking, well, surely the guard dog will be there as well as the guards. So do you take on both? Do you take on one of them? It didn't really make a huge amount of sense. So I wasn't overly impressed, to say the least. It's quite pretty, but as we said last time, you don't get points for being pretty anymore. It's expected.
The bar has raised.
Yes. So yeah, it was a bit, do action, roll dice, see what happens. So yeah, very much like Talisman actually, John, just thankfully a damn sight shorter.
Not going to rise to it. I can let this go. Let this go.
So, Mr. Steve, what was your other game here?
Well, yeah, so the other game, I can't believe I haven't mentioned this before. So I've been playing a little bit of Thunderstone Quest.
This is the sequel to Thunderstone, I assume.
Yes, the third one.
Ooh.
Its first sequel being Thunderstone Advance. If you play Thunderstone, you'll probably know what this is, really. So it's a deck building game. So a game where you build up your deck over time, and you use this deck to go into dungeons and kill monsters in your typical generic fantasy setting kind of way. And the main way it works is you will have heroes in your party which start off as like henchmen, and as you go through, which are armed with like a knife and a torch, and as you go through the game, you'll get characters and you'll level up those characters. So basically, make better versions of those cards. You'll give them spells, you'll give them weapons, you'll give them armor, that kind of thing.
That's remarkably like D&D.
Well, that's what it is. It's based on that kind of D&D concept.
Excellent.
But you've each got a party.
Yeah, so imagine like every person has a party in a deck, and that's what you're doing.
Right.
So your party will go into the dungeon, and you want to try and kill the monsters before your opponents do.
Okay.
The way the original Thunderstone worked is the monsters were basically just 3 monsters in a row, and the first one was on the first level of the dungeon, the second on the second, the third on the third. So as you went further into the dungeon, you needed more light to get to the deeper depths.
Makes sense.
And there's this complicated way in which light worked. What Thunderstone Quest does is now it's got like a separate board to the side of the main board, which is the dungeon itself. And this has got 7 areas in the dungeon. So it starts off with like an above ground level, which if you're playing most games, you've basically got some giant rats to kill, and it remains the same. And then the rest of the dungeon has different layers. So you'll set it up at the beginning of the game. So we played a game where it was like goblins on one level, lizard men on another, and undead on another. And what it means now is rather than just being a case of you have to like have enough torches to go for the dungeon, you can now move through the dungeon and go to different points. What this means is some monsters will stop you from moving, some rooms or some monsters will require you to have light or maybe guarded by magic, so magic doesn't work as well, or guarded with shields, so physical attacks don't work as well. But it gives you a bit more flexibility about what you actually do when you're in the dungeon side.
Rather than having to be good at all the stuff in one go, you could do it more piecemeal.
Yes. Yeah, you can tweak what you're doing based on what's on the board. And then what the other side of the game does is you have the village, which is basically the if you chose to go to the village, it's when you buy cards for your deck, but also it's the stage when you can level up your heroes. This has now got some extra things in there, so you can now buy resources, which are basically tokens, which previously you had to rely on everything that was in your deck. Now you've got tokens, so that you can take torches as tokens, or you can take rations as tokens as well.
Oh, okay.
Other than that, it's more or less the same as the previous Thunderstone.
I really liked Thunderstone.
Yes, and I really like this, but I do have a slight problem with it, and it is only slight, in that I didn't think it was different enough from the original Thunderstone for me to warrant getting this as well. Because I've got quite a lot of the first series, should we say, of Thunderstone. So everything before Thunderstone Advance. And although I can see they've tweaked a few things and made the game smoother and improved it, it wasn't, in my opinion, enough to replace that in my collection.
Okay, so is it just basically more of the same?
As I said, it's tweaked. It does feel like they've gone through, and this is version 3. They've gone through and made changes. So, okay, they've changed the characters and they've changed some of the items. But as I said, the big changes is change to the dungeon. But the game itself is still build up your deck of hand of cards, level up your players, go kill bad guys.
Right, okay. So can you use the earlier editions of it in this one or not?
No, this is like a complete
Right, okay.
line drawn, so nothing before Thunderstone Quest can be used in Thunderstone Quest.
Right, okay.
So it sounds to me like if you don't have Thunderstone, this is a great game, go buy it. If you do have Thunderstone, it's probably not worth buying this one just to have the latest one.
Unless you've played Thunderstone that much that you've basically seen it all and want something a bit fresh.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Fresh with a PH.
Don't know what that means.
You two were alive in the 90s, surely. You must have heard of fresh with a PH. The same sort of people used to say word.
I don't think me and Steve are cool enough for that.
No, evidently not.
No, definitely not.
Oh well.
So yeah, like it, I was really torn when actually the Kickstarter for this came out because I really wanted to back it on Kickstarter and decided it was one of those games that was far too expensive because it was going to cost over $100.
I was about to say, I distinctly remember you complaining about the price.
And I really am glad I didn't back it now, actually.
Yeah.
It's a good game. I mean, apparently I'm not too bothered because Adam's got everything for it. So, I mean, I can play it whenever, more or less whenever I want if Adam will allow it kind of thing. But I think I would have been a little bit disappointed if I backed it because I've already got a lot of Thunderstone already.
Sure. So is this kind of like the opposite of FOMO, whatever the hell that is? Or buyers, it's non-buyer's remorse. No, not remorse.
No, it's not.
Non-buyer's delight?
Non-buyer's sigh of relief they didn't spend a fortune on it.
Yes. There you go. There must be a
Catchy.
better way of saying that.
Yeah.
Relief.
It's interesting. I think there's been a few games recently that have come out that have that same sort of thing where it's a new version and it has got a few different bits and pieces, but it doesn't feel like it's quite good enough to justify swapping over. Like there's another, I've played a lot of Suro and I introduce a lot of people to Suro because it's a nice easy game to play. A lot of people I play games with don't often play games, but someone got really excited when they spotted there was Suro of the Seas, which is similar to Suro but with a few extra bits and pieces in there, a few different mechanics. And I had a look at various playthrough videos, and before I'd seen what was in it, I was like, ooh, more Suro, brilliant. Then I watched the playthroughs and things and thought, it's kind of the same game, just with not quite enough to push me over the limit to go, well, the first one was great, I better have this as well. I feel like there's probably a few things that have come out recently along those lines. It sounds like this is another one in the trend.
This is going to be a case of, more is not necessarily better.
If it's more in the sense that it just adds to the original game, then that's great. But if it's just a kind of small tweak on it, what was the other one? The Stained Glass Azul update.
Sinatra or whatever it was called.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people come to the same sort of conclusion for that, where it's, although it's a great game on its own, if you've already got the first one, then it's probably not worth, like it's not that different to the original.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're addicted to it, then obviously go out and buy it, because if you enjoy it that much, why not? But if it's only kind of, depends how level-headed you are as well, I suppose. how thorough a junkie you are.
Well, that criticism has been levelled at me a few times recently.
Rightfully.
I'm not denying it.
It's good. Admitting that you've got a problem is the first step into overcoming it.
I don't want to overcome it. I'm quite comfortable with it. Thank you very
not
much.
a problem.
See, I keep telling people it's not a problem, and yet they say it is a problem. You shouldn't be doing it. Why not? I'm happy. I'm sure there are plenty of drug addicts out there who are quite happy doing what they're doing.
It's probably less damaging to your health than what they're doing as well.
You're right, board games are far worse.
Wait, what? You're not supposed to smoke them, Andy.
Oh.
That's why he gets through them so quickly.
Yes. I buy all of these games. There's only actually 4 on my shelf. They have literally been incinerated.
Oh my. So that was Thunderstone Quest.
Mm-hmm.
And a few other bits and pieces. Another game that we managed to play over the Christmas period, or shortly after, was Dice Hospital, Mr. Lewis.
We did, and I'm rather glad you came along to play this with me.
Yes, I think it's fair to say I love this game. In fact, I would own a copy now, were it not for the fact that I can't find it in stock anywhere.
Speak nicely to Cesar. He might have one knocking about. But I have noticed, actually, there are a lot of people trying to get hold of, especially the expansion sort of add-on-y bit that contains all the sort of nice ambulances and stuff. But yes, it has been I would say surprise hit, but it's not really a surprise, but it has been a very big hit. It was extremely popular for the last 2 Games Expos, and I still didn't manage to get a sit down at it to try and actually try it before I'd bought it anyway. I just wanted to try it to see how much of a turd I'd backed or not. And turns out not.
A turd it was not, no.
No, it was not.
So remind me if I get any of this wrong, but the gist of it is you are each managing a hospital, and various waves of patients in various levels of sickness will turn up at your doors, and you need to vie for how sick a patient you can cope with. You need to choose which rooms you want to extend your hospital with, and you want to choose which consultants you want to employ in your hospital to further the capabilities of it.
Yeah, basically.
Is it in a nutshell. Now, there's a little bit more to it than that, and there's quite a lot of agency in this game, which I really enjoyed. So you take it in turns to roll dice, and 3 dice go into each of these little plastic ambulances, and you as the first player roll all the dice, everyone else then picks them. Is that right? The next person picks, and then so on.
Yeah, basically, the first player populates these ambulances, and the first player gets the choice of which ambulance they want first, but they're not allowed to pick the lowest numbered one, which contains the most critical patients.
Yeah.
The idea being that the person who does pick that ambulance, or the lowest numbered one anyway, once they've all been picked, becomes the first player. So it's possible the first player can still be the first player if they pick like ambulance number 2 and nobody wants to bother picking the first one. But the person who picks the lowest numbered ambulance gets first dibs on the hospital upgrades. So there's this nice balance between playing it safe.
Take more risk, yeah.
Yeah. You play it safe and pick like the safest ambulance where your patients are going to last longest and don't need as much care. Or you pick the riskier ones that are basically on death's door, but you do get the best opportunity to try and improve your facility. So this wonderful playoff. And if you're paying attention, and I know you did this, certainly to me, and I'm pretty sure you did to Alora too, that you pick an upgrade that you know, or you've got a pretty good idea that your opponents want as well. So there's a good bit of potential for dickery as well, which of course we all love. Yes. Which is great. So there's a really nice level of player interaction.
So the other thing is the dice you're rolling, they're all different colours. And the bits and pieces that you add to your hospital, the consultants that you take on board, generally apply to a single colour at a time, or to a lesser extent to multiple colours possibly. So you get something that will like turn a patient who's down near death's door, they're a number 1 or a number 2, like might heal them by 3 points to bring them up close. What you want to do is heal them all the way up to past the end of the dice, up to 7, which basically means you can discharge them, and when you discharge them, you get points. And whoever's got the most points at the end of the game wins the game. So you're constantly kind of weighing up what colours of dice you've got in your various wards, how badly sick they are, and how much you think you can heal. So you're kind of trying to get the combos in there. Like you might have one facility that allows you to heal 2 dice up to a 3 dice up to a 4, and a 4 dice up to a 5. Like you need the distances between those dice to be the same so that you can keep nudging them. As soon as you get rid of one of those dice, you can't use that ward anymore. So you're constantly looking at what dice you need to bring on board to slot into that pattern so you can keep healing them and keep discharging someone.
Yeah.
The other thing you need to keep in mind if you want to score big is that the more people you discharge in a single round, the bigger the points you score. So to begin with, I'd like discharge 1 here and 1 there and 1 there. But because I was only doing it like once each round, I wasn't getting huge points. As soon as I clocked that, the next round was just like, okay, don't need to score anything this round. And then the following round, bang, 20 points. Thank you very much.
Indeed. But of course, the risk of doing that is that there's a limited amount of space in your hospital. So you can only bring in up to, I think it's 12 patients, because there's 4 wards that you can put these people on. But you bring in, and you have to bring in 3 patients every round. So there's this lovely balance of discharging enough patients each round in order to be able to bring in patients, because if you either don't have the room or you neglect your patients, then they'll die and you lose points. And if you don't heal enough, there's not enough room. But if you heal too many, then you'll get a big bonus, but then you spend the next 3 rounds basically getting no points because there's nothing left in your hospital. You've got this wonderful facility with no bugger in it.
Yep. So I really liked the whole engine building aspect. The fact that you're playing that off against dicking over everyone else, and it just felt like a really well thought out game. There was a lot of agency in it. You got to choose what you wanted. There was some random elements, and there's some random bits in the way that if someone else takes the stuff that you'd planned for, you're potentially a bit stuffed.
Yes, but that's just being on the receiving end of the dick move, which is it's part of the game. And yeah. I agree with you, John. I think there's this lovely. It's well thought out. It's very tight. It's very crisp. I don't think there's anything there that doesn't need to be.
No.
And it's light enough that it's accessible, but it's heavy enough in the sense that you need to think about what you're doing to make it challenging, but not it's not Ave Roma levels of brain burn. It's great.
I didn't have my brain dribbling out my ears by the end of the game, so that's always a good sign.
Yes. Yes, it's a good, what I'd call a crossover game, I think. It's not quite entry level, but it's not heavy enough, for the Agras or the TI3s or the, the really sort of heavy sort of games of this world. So it's a nice game to introduce to casual gamers, I would say. Gamers who play games now and again, who want a bit more of a challenge. But it's brilliant. I'm really glad I backed it.
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it, Steve.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I need to try this out. Again, just like Andy, I've not managed to catch this at any expo or con or anything, which is amazing considering it's been at every single convention I've been to in the last 24 months.
Yep. Yeah. But I suppose the reason is the reason certainly for me is that it was just mobbed. Cesar was mobbed every single time he turned up with it.
Yeah, I've also I saw like at Aircon a few people were playing it as well, which is like a prototype copy was doing some of the tables later in the evening. But yeah, didn't get them. I've never had a chance to get it to have a go of it. And I also thought, well, I knew you were backing it, so
yes.
I was kind of banking on you having it available at some point. But yeah, I really would like to try this out. I mean, the fact that both of you guys have proclaimed how good it is makes it even more intriguing because the Venn diagram of games that both John and Andy like is
limited.
Not a massive crossover, yeah.
It's like it's almost like the edge of these two circles. Just touch.
Yes.
That's it. Just the tip.
Yes. But no, it does happen, every now and again the stars align and John and I find, like Nemesis, for example, there's another one that we both think, what, this is belting. I genuinely think it is a potential candidate for a Polyhedron Collider 3 for 3 in 2019.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm pretty sure John will buy it.
Brave words.
Well,
so that means I've got to buy it then.
Yes, you do. And the good thing is, it's not actually very expensive. I think it's about £30. Because there's not, if you buy the base game without all of the sort of the ambulances and stuff in it, it's not overly expensive. There's not a huge amount in the box. It's basically just a big bag of dice.
Is that retail price though? Or is that Kickstarter price though?
I guess retail actually. I'm only guessing. I think it should be about. It's probably going to be no more than 40, because there's not a huge amount in the box. It's basically a bunch of punch boards and a big bag of dice.
That doesn't that doesn't mean anything. We all know the strong. We were discussing just this very weekend. You were showing me what came in the.
Oh yeah, that
Terraforming Mars box.
Yes.
And I went, that's not so bad. You get lots in there for your money. And then you went, no, that's all. That's got all the expansions in as well.
Oh yes. Oh. That had a lot in it. Here we go. You can get it for. Weirdly, it's £42 currently on Amazon, but it's about £30 on Zatu.
£30 on Zatu. Bloody hell. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
You sure it's not out of stock?
Amazon Prime said they've got it in stock.
Yeah.
Son of a click.
And the deluxe add-ons expansion, where you get all the sort of sexy ambulances and stuff in it, is another £22. So £50 basically all in, give or take. And it is currently in stock at Zatu as well. 2 in stock, they are, Mr. Cage. Chop, chop.
Yeah, I'll do that after this.
So yeah, there you go. Definitely worth it. Definitely good value for money. And it reminds me of...
You're making me go on Zatu, you bastard.
Oh, you see?
Close the tabs.
Live board game purchasing with Polyhedron Collider. And for once, it's not me.
Steve, I'm still opening another tab. Come join me.
I've lost my train of thought now completely. Oh, that's right. Yeah, it reminds me actually of Theme Hospital. If you two remember that. Remember Bullfrog Games?
I never played Theme Hospital. I played Theme Park a hell of a lot, but I did never play Theme Hospital.
Oh, you need to. It's wonderful. Same sort of idea, same sense of humour, same sort of animation. It's a bit more tongue-in-cheek than Dice Hospital, but I don't know. There's just something about Dice Hospital that just reminds me of Theme Hospital, and that's not a bad thing.
Is it that they're both in hospitals?
It might well be that, Mr. Cage, yeah. And the fact that it's kind of a sort of false isometric 3D effect as well. But no, very, very good. Alley Cat have done a really great job here, and yeah, definitely one to get hold of.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think we should call it a night, gents. I think we've had a good download of our thoughts on games over the last few weeks.
Indeed.
Which means we need to play some more games before the next episode.
Well, if you insist.
Yeah.
Chop.
Yeah. We might have an opportunity this weekend, perhaps, Steve.
Ooh, we might actually, yes.
Ooh, there's foreshadowing.
Which means we won't. By the fact it's just saying that means we won't.
Sorry, the thought of playing games is setting off my allergies. I need to build up my tolerance again.
See, I can't. I'm going to a party.
Ah.
A sexy party.
I don't want to know.
Does it involve cocktails?
Cocktails! Back at base. Now, Gary, suck my... Anyway.
Thank you very much for listening. We've been Polyhedron Collider. If you actually enjoyed this, we'd appreciate a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. Don't forget you can chat to us on Twitter. As a group, we are at Polyhedron C. But I am at Hoffemadenga.
I am at Sonic H with a 0.
And I'm at John_Cage.
We're also on Facebook under Polyhedron Collider, and we're on the Board Game Geek Guild number 2726.
We are also... Sorry, I didn't realise I'm doing this bit now.
Yeah, you can do the D&D stuff now.
All right, that handle's been passed over, has it? We are also weekly available on twitch.tv/Polyhedron Collider for our bi-weekly for me, but weekly for Steve, D&D outing. You can also find us on youtube.com/user /Polyhedron Collider. You heard. Smooth.
Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Tatty bye. Ta-ra.
Catch you later.